Hi, you're listening to and watching Taking It Black here on 987 KISS FM live on our YouTube channel. And this is my podcast. I'm attorney Valerie Hicks Hale, and I'm looking forward to spending a couple of minutes with you today as we discuss current issues that impact us, our children, our lives, our community. Today is no different. I want to share with you something that has been in the news, and I've been talking about it even before it became a part of major news stories, and that is the critical race theory. I've tried to go through some scenarios and explain exactly what that is and why it is so important that we as African Americans understand the critical race theory, understand how to think critically about race and about institutions that came out of um, a very racist society, that were created in a very racist society, calling them what they are, not for the purpose of being divisive, but for the purpose of clarity, understanding what it is we need to do going forward. We are where we are today because of our past, and if we keep doing what we've done, then we're going to keep getting what we've got. And so we do need to make some major changes moving forward. And I'm looking at the critical race theory as something that we can look at in terms of teaching our children how to think critically about the issue of race, and not just our children, the entire country. Again, not to be divisive, but to find out, how did we get here, so that we can get ourselves out and move forward. General Mark Milley this week talked about the critical race theory during a hearing, and it's been echoing all over the country, all over the internet and social media. Why? Because it was spot on. He is saying what I and so many others have been saying about the critical race theory. And he talked about white rage and understanding it. And he said, I've read Lenin, and it doesn't make me a communist. We're going to get into a little bit more of what he said, but I just want to share with you the fact that this is important, because we have the head of the Joint Chiefs who said, look, we need to understand this. We need to have a conversation about this. It does not make us divisive. He is white. He is a general in the military, and he is the head of the Joint Chiefs. He served under President Trump, and he is serving now under President Biden. He has defended the study, the critical race theory, in the military, and because it came there was some opposition to that being taught in the military. When he was pressed on the issue during a House Armed Services Committee, he said he wanted to understand white rage. And as I told you in previous clips here on the podcast of Taking It Black, the critical race theory really is an academic concept that is centered around the idea that institutions in the United States are inherently create economic, political, and social inequalities between people based on their race. People of color, of course, on the bottom end of that for the most part. The methodology about teaching about the critical race theory has been misinterpreted. It's been used as talking points by the far right GOP, and believe it or not, we talked about this last week. 20 states or more at this point have passed legislation that would limit how and if the critical race theory can be discussed in schools, and not just the critical race theory, but race and systemic oppression. That they've limited the discussion of race and the systemic oppression that used race as its basis, arguing that it's too divisive to be taught in classrooms across the country. This is important because we have a 4-star general who is Republican, who served under a Republican president, who is saying to lawmakers that the Pentagon, and he was challenged when lawmakers challenged him, saying that the Pentagon was accepting of the critical race theory, and stating that, especially at West Point, where it is being taught, those West Point courses are embracing a concept, of course, the critical race theory, a concept that weakens the military's mission. This is a 4-star general, again, who is the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He would have some idea better than any of the Congress people about whether or not this would weaken their position. And I think at the very least, we should respect his opinion regarding this equally, if not more, than we do those in Congress who are calling him out, saying that the critical race theory should not be taught. He goes on to say, I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military of being woke, because woke is a bad word, if you didn't know. In some circles, in many circles, in too many circles, the term woke is a bad word. It's vulgar. But he says, I think it's for you to accuse the U.S. military of being woke because we're studying theories that are out there, theories, legitimate theories. General Milley went on to say that the military, particularly those who go through military academies, should be open-minded and widely read. And they should come from the American people, because they do come from the American people. And here's something I really want to focus on. The general was approached by lawmakers saying that they had been approached by soldiers and families and cadets, saying that this is a divisive type of teaching that is rooted in Marxism, and it classifies people in lines, in class lines, entirely on their race, creating or identifying a entire race of people as the oppressed and the other race of people as the oppressor. Well, what was slavery? I don't understand why that's Marxism. If teaching that is Marxism, then certainly living that and fighting a war on that should be racism or Marxism as well. We fought an entire civil war on the fact that the Confederate states believed that they should maintain slavery, that they had a right to maintain the ownership of other human beings, oppressing them because of their race. The people who were the oppressors were white, Caucasian. The people who were the oppressed were Black, African American. So it really, I'm shocked that now they would say this teaching the theory, not living the theory, but teaching the theory, classifies people along class lines and identifies an entire race of people as the oppressor and the oppressed. Well, it may do that precisely because that's what we have done in this country. It's just teaching what was done. It's teaching the truth. Milley goes on to defend the curriculum and states that he says, I've read Mao Zedong, and I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me communist, notwithstanding the fact that all three of those were pillars of the communist regime. He says, what's wrong with understanding? And that has been my point all along. Why can't we at least discuss it? Why can't we teach it so that we can discuss it? And I love this point where he says, I want to understand white rage. Now, it takes a white man to be able to just call it like that and not be called a racist dog. I guess an old white man who is a 4-star general in the military and the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I think he can get away with it because he is all of those things. But he says, and I'm white. I want to understand white rage, and I'm white. And he goes on to say, and the analysis and analyze. I want to understand white rage and analyze what caused thousands of people to storm the U.S. Capitol during the January 6th insurrection and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America. We've got to have these conversations, and we have to have more people like General Milley to come forward and speak the truth. Speak truth to power. To call out those things as they are and not pretend they don't exist, or at worst, as we've seen too many times over, the attempt to overturn them and make them into something that they're not. You know, the Civil War was based on slavery and nothing more. States' rights only means that they were fighting over the right to own slaves. The states were fighting over the right to own slaves, period. So I wanted to share this with you so that when you hear the term critical race theory, you do not cringe. That when you hear that term, you do a little bit more research. You use what you've learned about it to share things with your children regarding the critical race theory and how how we have been institutionalized in so many ways in this country regarding race, and how just simple things that we think about in this country is based on that institutionalized view that has been taught to us about race. And until we can do that, until we can start to understand that and have a real honest conversation about it, things will remain the same. Wow. We are here at the end of our program. I just wanted to do a short blog for you, or vlog for you today here on Taking It Black. I'm your host, Attorney Valerie Hicks Hale. I'll see you back here, same time, same place next week on Taking It Black.